flags with Azure App Configuration. So just coming and bring a little bit about me. So for those that don't know me, my name is Marcel Medina. I'm a software developer and Azure specialist. I am a Azure MVP. I also I am a Microsoft certified trainer, got the certifications. I got my QR code here that leads to my technical blog, where in general, like I post some great findings from work and on my own studies. For today, what we're going to explore before we jump to codes, I love jump to code, but we're going to have a little bit of context on feature flags, on the Azure App Configuration, and then we're going to go to demo, right? I love demos. And for the feature flags, right? If you're new, if you're not like used with that terminology, if you're being like on the field, this is very familiar ground for you. But feature flags, so bring like a little bit of context. Feature flags, also known as feature toggles, or vice versa. So I just got like this reference from Martin Fowler website, but feature flags has been there like for even before, like this article is from 2017, but even before things were being used, right? But if you're looking here, like some key areas, feature toggles, right, are a powerful technique allowing teams to modify system behavior. Oops, let me just show this screen, right? Without changing code. That's the power of feature flags. It brings, you can completely change how your system behaves. You don't need to change a thing. You basically, through configuration, you get things to behave differently, right? Another thing that mentions in here is that toggles introduce complexity, right? I think like if you're not using any tooling on the market, that you're definitely going to end up like with a lot of uh, complexity in your codes on how you're going to deal with that. One of the things that with Azure App Configuration is that it removes that layer of complexity, right? So that's why feature flags match really well with Azure App Configuration. This is the link in here, just to share if you want to explore a little bit more. And on Azure App Configuration itself, right? What is Azure? What's the app configuration? So it's a service within Azure that it's allows you to set up, like I would say, basically it's a key value store, right? So it allows you to put like key value pairs for configurations, for flags. And it also allows you to centrally manage application settings. We're going to be approaching here feature flags, but not only that, you can have like application settings that maybe you need to centralize those because you have like common applications pulling those settings from app configuration, right? That's important. It's a feature really of the service where you can centrally manage feature flags, right? As we discussed on previous slides. And you basically don't need to touch code at all. You don't need to do any redeployment or even like an app restart. And things just work like on the fly dynamically. This is also a service, right, that implements this external configuration pattern. What that means is that when you have like this idea of config store, right, where you want to centralize things all together, that's like what the pattern tells us about it. You can leverage this service to be applied, right, and to fulfill this design pattern. It's also part of one of the 12 factor apps, let's say tenets, right? So that for if you don't know, like the 12 factor app is kind of a methodology of how you create your software, right? Just to be like become like a software as a service, right? So in general, nowadays, like how you create like your cloud native apps, or any sort of applications really on the cloud. And there is a particular tenet that mentions about that the configuration shouldn't be bound to code. It should be separate. So if you're following like the 12-factor app tenets principles, you're going to see that this matches as a good um, implementation, right? Um, this is the link that is available here on Azure App Configuration. We also have the external configuration store. There are like different considerations in there. I'm not going to dive onto those, but it's for you to know, right? So if you're leveraging, let's say, I'm going to show here like an example of a web app. But let's say that you have a service that's running on AKS, on Kubernetes, or a web app. You can leverage app configuration for that. And it has like capabilities to resolve like and implement like this tenant. Let's go to the demo, right? And one of the things in here you're gonna notice is that I have forked this from another repo. And the main thing, I create like a variation of that because the example had .NET 6. And what I'm going to show in here, it's leveraging .NET 8, right? In general, like I'm a .NET developer, I tend to bring like examples on .NET. And but well, with app configuration, you can use like they're like SDKs, for example, on .NET, on Java, on JavaScript, on Python. So you can just make use of that, right? So it's not exclusively to .NET at all. Let me come and share my screen here. So I have my Visual Studio solution. I'm gonna just zoom in a little bit. So you're gonna see the structure of the project, but we have a web app. It's a ESP.NET MVC implementation, and that's the vanilla one. We have like some pages in here, and I'm gonna dive into that. As soon as we jump in here, right, so we can see the program file. You're gonna see that, okay, we need a connection string because we're leveraging a service, right, on the cloud. So we need to make sure we have this connection string. You're gonna see that we have this wrap here where we're adding the Azure App Configuration, okay? So it comprises this whole thing in here. And within there, after we have the connection string, we connect. We have a selection of keys. So you're going to see that we have different web demo settings. Okay, so I'm just filtering to that. This one here, it's an important one. That's where we have the refresh of any settings. So let's say that you're applying some changes. You are enabling a feature flag. You could change like any configuration settings as well, but you want that to be actioned, right? And be applied straight away in your application. You can configure an auto refresh, or what I'm doing here is that based on this setting, it's called like Web Demo Sentinel, for any changes that happen in there, it automatically refreshes my application settings from my web app without any restarts, right? Another thing is that what I'm doing here, I connect to Key Vault. So Key Vault is where like I have secrets, and I'm pulling secrets from there. And the secrets are not bound to this application. It's bound to the app configuration. I'm going to show in there. One of the things that marries really well is that we have these use feature flags in .NET. So it kind of marries up .NET with app configuration. It's really, I would say, neat because you don't need to do a lot of work to get things to be combined, right? This method in here comes with like some NuGet libraries, right? I'm gonna show in here. Let me just show like the NuGet, and then we can continue on the page. But what I have in here is that we have the app configuration library for ASP.NET Core. And we have the .NET extension for the feature management, right? So kind of the application combines them like to work together, right? It's very neat. You're gonna see in here. Let's just continue. So what happens that's in here, after we have hooked the app configuration, we can also hook the feature, and I'm applying a filter in here. What's this filter? I'm gonna dive onto that. Not now. I'm gonna show like when we get to on the demo itself, right? But you're gonna see that you have different flavors of the feature flag, and you have full control of what you want to do, what you can do. I think from here you're gonna see that after the services are already initialized, then we can create our web app. So that's after like the builder, we build that, and from here we have a middleware. So what's the middleware? The middleware is basically a pipeline in .NET. You could just jump in here and see like, oh, okay, how things are implemented. Like I didn't do that. This is part of the libraries. Right? So you can see here that it's part of the an extension that comes within this NuGet package, right? Azure App Configuration, ASP.NET, ASP.NET Core. But it does that for us, right? So we don't need to do a lot. Now I'm gonna play the solution, right? And I'm gonna show the behavior. I'm playing on my local. Hope things work well. And let me just zoom in a little bit. It came up to my other screen. Okay. What I want to show, maybe I can do like side by side. Okay. I'm running my local. Well, this message here shows, oh, is this message coming from Azure App Configuration? Yes. Okay. uh, I can prove that to you. Other things that I don't have in here, right? You remember the filter. All right, let's say if I'm doing A/B testing, and let's say that I'm passing this guy in here, okay? A query string, AB1, for example, and I'm showing a flag for that, all right? So if you're not like entirely sure like about A/B testing, right? So A/B testing is more like a technique to validate user I would say user experience, but user journeys, right? So you can apply that to customers to validate whether like products are going to become popular or not, to validate flows through your website. I'm just bringing here as an example, and we're leveraging feature flags for that. Because I could say that when my product goes to market, maybe it goes on a specific time, or when I define that this one is going to be enabled. I could say that, oh, from now this feature flag is enabled. So whoever comes with this square string, they're going to see another product, something specific to them. I'm doing that with feature flags. How? Let me come to the Azure. All right. So within Azure, let me just check in here how things are going. And I'm gonna come in here. I'm just zooming a little bit better so you guys can see. I think this one should be okay. Okay, cool. And so this is like my app config, right? Configuration. And I have the configuration explorer. When I look in here, I have configuration settings. And can you see like this icon here? This is the key vault configuration setting. So I basically have like an object in here, like our configuration settings for the messages, font size, background color. Do you remember like the message, right? So if I come in here and change, is this coming from app configuration? Azure App Configuration? Yes. Let's say here totally. Okay. I'm gonna apply that. My application, I think it's running, still running. Cool. Nothing is going to happen. All right. So if I come like back to my solution, I left it running. Right. Well, it's still showing yes. I changed to totally, but it's not coming because it's not being refreshed. How are we going to refresh that? I have this one like Sentinel. That was my configuration to enable me to change that. It doesn't matter in here like the value. I'm just saying that providing that this change, things happen, right? I have just updated that. And let me come back in here. Nothing happened yet. Let me click like in here, like on privacy. Did you see something happen here? Setting updated. Setting updated, right? Okay, so things were reloaded. What if I come in here and back to home? Right, so that has changed. So I can control how things change, right? In particular with the feature flag. Let me go. We have like other features within the app configuration, but I'm gonna focus like on the feature flag in here. I'm gonna jump to this quickly, very quick in few minutes. Let me enable beta delta, okay? This is a Boolean, it's just a toggle. Uh, Still, if I look at my application, nothing's gonna happen, okay? Still the same, I need to refresh that. So I need to go back in to my configuration explorer and tell Sentinel here like this. I'm calling Sentinel, but it could be anything. Oh, change. Oh, I'm just changing. Doesn't it's me? Oh, it's meaningless. It can be anything. So I have changed that. So if I go back in here and I go back to my application, I'm gonna click in here on privacy. You can see here things were reloaded. Okay, things were reloaded, and we came up with two new tabs, beta and delta. What does it mean? Well, it's just like a simple static page, but we have behaviors in here. And if I go to home, so now I can see that I also have some areas, other areas that were enabled, right? And I'm just controlling that with feature flags. So I could deploy things onto production and let out the business to decide when to turn it on, or operations team, for example, to come like to Azure and enable that. But we can do better than that. You could just simply deploy it, have it enabled, but not necessarily active. You remember this one, right? The gamma, it was already enabled. What is it? So if I added this, you're gonna see that I have like a feature filter, okay? And what I can do with filters is that you can see here like, okay, I'm just specifying that I have my query string filter. And as I come in here, I say, okay, I have a parameter called query string field name. And I'm watching for, well, this AB, right, which was my query string. But how do we marry those things together, right? So if you look at the application level, you're going to see that, oops, let me come back here. We have this filters folder. And when I look at this filters folder, let me show in here first. I have just well, simply a property, or query string field name. And from this property, what I do, this is the main implementation. All right, so I can create this filter and put like full screen. And from this filter, I implementing this feature, this interface, I feature filter, which gives me this methods in here, evaluate async. But from codes, what I'm doing is that, okay, grab the parameters from the settings. How are the settings being loaded? So if I look at my application, okay, we have in here like this big group. Oops, up to here, right? And we have the query string filter. And oops, let me just bring the mouse to the other screen. Anyways, but we have the query filter enabled for the same name and the same attributes. That one comes from Azure. Okay. And if we go like you can see that this is the structure that we have. If you look at the filter again, so it's loading those settings. And as soon as I have that, it tries to validate, okay, does the query string contain that field, AB? That's the query string. Yes, it does. So check like if it's enabled. It contains that. Otherwise, just return false. Just like a really dummy logic. But you could do any sort of behaviors in here. You could just control what you're going to happen. Like I create like this as a query string filter. You could create like leveraging maybe like based on a browser, number of requests on the user itself. If I come in here, I can show that we have more features, more filters available. I'm not going to create those, but you can see that we have a targeting filter, right? Targeting filter, so you can target an audience, right? So you can have like an evaluation flow. It shows like how you could do things, right? And how it would work. And you could like apply for specific groups, specific users. You have like a time window. So you could like enable the feature flag, but only to be available during this period of time, right? So you want to automatically unflag or remove that feature flag, right? Once it reaches the expire date, okay? So you have like options in here to control that yourself. Let me just discard that. The other thing like I would like to show, right, that I didn't come in here, but we got to show like the key vault. I'm gonna jump to the key vault, and you're gonna see here, this is my key vault in here. And we have a secret. That's the background color, which is, if I look in here, you'll see it's white. Well, I can create like another one with a different color, right? So let's say that I want to put this one as what color? I'm not gonna say. Great. Okay, so I have like another secret. Is that gonna work? Not straight away. I need to come in and say, well, to the Sentinel that to refresh the cache. Okay. One of the things I didn't mention is that you can specify that auto refresh. So you could say like, oh, refresh after, I don't know, 1 hour, 5 minutes. If you don't do anything, nothing changes. So what I'm doing here, I'm just forcing for things to change. Okay. So if I go back in here to my screen, and what about this? Okay. So keep an eye. Oops. Background color. Things have changed. I not seeing the change in color. Now it came up. I think like it's just like a little bit of delay, but you could see in here that things were updated. Right, background color, and that came from Key Vault. So you could apply even secrets that you have. You don't need to store them on app configuration. You can have those secrets on Key Vault, right? So which is pretty cool, and you have full control of that. There's more on app config. I'm just looking like here at a time, but what I would invite you is that to explore like this tool, right? If it matches any of the use case that you have like on your business, right? Even like maybe if you're dealing with APIs, if you're dealing with UI, you could leverage like this service and have more capabilities like geo-replication. You can scale up. I'm using the free tier, right? The main difference is that the free tier doesn't do that, but you have like full control on how your configuration settings, your feature flags are stored on app config, right? I think this is what I had to share. I
That's
enjoyed.
awesome, mate. That's awesome. Thank you so much. I actually didn't know about this feature. That's really cool. So, like if I'm understanding correctly, you could actually update an application while it's live and still not worry about breaking your production environment.
Exactly, right? So you can
Nice.
simply change the behavior just with a change or a refresh of a setting.
Oh, right,
And
right.
this is
And
it.
then
You don't need like a redeploy at all. So
nice, nice, nice. And then once you are comfortable on the code with the code, you could actually deploy it with a, like I said, with a refresh.
correct, right? So I think like that's um, it's a service that's not necessarily well explored,
Right.
but are definitely like advised for like engineers to look at that.
Nice.
And when you compare prices with like the other marketing tools or even other tools, well, you're gonna
This
see
feature
like
is already
differences.
built in into Azure.
Correct. Yeah.
Nice, 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 nice. That's a great session. Thank you for the presentation. I really liked with the all the drawing on the screen and all of that because that brings the point home. So that's an awesome session. Thank you so much, Marcel. Yeah.